Mumbai, the entertainment capital of a relentless appetite. Ideas go in, product comes out. That is the machine. And then there is Prithvi. This place was not born of brick and mortar. It was born of the human heart. Prithvi Raj Kapoor understood something the industry keeps forgetting. Acting is not performance. It is presence. That understanding was not sealed in memory. It was carried forward, given flesh and daily discipline by Jennifer Kendal and Shashi Kapoor. They did not build a monument. They built a furnace. A space where failure is permitted, but dishonesty is not. Today that same flame is guarded quietly, without slogans, by those who didn't inherit applause, but responsibility. Prithvi understands something the marketplace does not. You are not the story. The story is larger than you, and you must serve it or step aside. In a city addicted to arrival, Prithvi honors becoming. In an industry drunk on applause, it insists on listening. And the man who stewards this space today does not stand above it. He stands inside it. My guest today is Kunal Kapoor, and Christmas feels like the right moment to talk to him. He carries a rare confluence, the discipline of Prithvi and the warmth of home. Jennifer Kendal brought into the Kapoor family a way of gathering, not as display, but as ritual. A pause in a city that never pauses. The Kapoors already knew how to celebrate life. She gave that celebration a season. Kunal carries that forward quietly. No spectacle, just care. And in a city that consumes everything that matters. And that is where this conversation begins. So welcome to the Pooja Bhatt show, Mr. Kunal Kapoor, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
I was very moved when I heard that when your mother passed away, you called Feroz from London and told him that the show must go on.
That was 1984, 7th of September. It wasn't a surprise. We knew she was going. She was very ill for some time. But this was, 84, September. It was before mobiles. So the first thought was actually, because I was shuttling up and down to look after the theatre, and Filmwala's Utsav was in post-production at the time. And while Mum was in hospital in England, Dad was there, everybody was there. So from England, my first thing was to go and find a phone booth where I could call Feroz, who was helping me maintain the theatre, before the news came out in Bombay and they did something stupid. So I called him and said, listen, Mum's gone, but don't shut the theatre. The show has to go on. You cannot close.
That's amazing.
So we've always had that. The show must go on. And the other thing is that, the stage should never go into darkness.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that on a daily basis, after show goes into darkness, for a few hours and then come in. But like during COVID, when shows were absolutely not allowed. So then we have what they call the ghost light. So there was a 24-hour light. We put one of my grandfather's, Jeffrey Kendall's chairs, folding chairs. I put that on stage. And we designed two lights. We put two lights that were lighting up the chair on the stage. And that was on 24 hours.
All through COVID?
All through, both times.
Oh.
So the stage did not go dark.
Wow.
AC plants and electricals, they need to run.
Yeah.
Otherwise they'll start to rot, and particularly where on the, the sea coast. So every 2 days we would turn the ACs on for a while. That general kind of maintenance. And we kept all our staff on site. Didn't let them go home, and we created kitchens for them and, places for them to stay. But yeah, the show goes on.
Amazing. That's absolutely
and
amazing.
the ghost light.
Oof, that's just, I've got goose flesh. That says so much. 20 years of tradition where you've hosted the legendary Kapoor lunch. This is the first year you're going to be in London, and the pudding is not going to be steeped in brandy in Juhu this year.
It'll happen again, but it'll happen in London.
Tell us what it's like to be on that table. Zahan cooks, Shaira cooks, you cook.
It's a lot of bloody hard work. It should be done in the way we always did it. It's a family affair. It's all kind of home stuff. My old cook, Jamal, his father before Habumia, Zan also loves to cook. So we've always cooked our own turkeys. Sometimes we do a glazed ham. Zan does a very good ham with crispy skin on the top. It's very good. And roast potatoes and broccoli and salad and ratatouille sometimes for the vegetarians. And lots of garlic bread. Lots and lots of garlic bread. Of course, even before that, you start with making the mince pies, which you have for tea, which I have now recently discovered taste exceptionally good at 3 o'clock in the morning.
When you're binge watching some show.
Yeah, I'm watching a film or watching something. And then the Christmas pudding, which classically should be made almost a year in advance.
Wow.
But that doesn't happen. So generally we kind of make it about 3 weeks, a month before Christmas.
Loaded with brandy.
Yeah, it is loaded with brandy in the making of it. And then there's also brandy butter, which is divine. And then, of course, you pour more brandy on top of it and you light it.
Yeah.
And, the flames, and then you cut it, and then that's the end of Christmas lunch.
But you said ratatouille for the
Well, there used to be
vegetarians.
also cauliflower cheese or a bake,
Yeah.
because at home, none of us would bother with that, but it's an RK hangover. So RK always had this, what I thought was a horrible baked dish on the table. There was some baked macaroni.
With the white
dish.
sauce.
That was a must. So what we do at home was we would do a cauliflower cheese, which is also baked.
Right.
But it's not macaroni, it's the cauliflower cheese. And that would always be on the table, but last few years we've not done it. We would do it for Bhabiji,
Right.
because she really liked it. And then we don't do it anymore.
But what's your earliest Christmas memory?
Getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and attacking the Christmas tree to tear open our presents. It must have been 4 or 5, is this blurred? Because we always celebrated Christmas. We took our house in Goa and Baga, 1970, 71. Before that, Christmas lunch was at home. Dabu was always a permanent fixture because he was also very close to my father. And the kids, all us cousins, would be called over. And everyone had little presents and, fun. We had a great time. But when we moved to Goa, then we were in Goa every Christmas. So for the next almost 20 years, we were in Goa. And Dad was also the period when Dad became very busy. So he would actually fly down on Christmas Eve with the turkey, which Habumia, my old cook, made in Bombay. And he would fly down on Christmas Eve with the turkey and the Christmas pudding. St. Anthony's restaurant was minuscule in those days. It was not what it is today. And we would take the turkey over there, and then he would warm it up, and he would make the roast potatoes and vegetables and broccoli that would go with it. And we would have Christmas lunch at home. And for us, Goa was completely the opposite. So the house in Goa initially had no electricity. For a long time, it had no water. It had no sewage. You had a well outside. You drew your water from the well. You filled up buckets. You had a bucket bath. And the loo was an outhouse, and the pigs were your sewage system. So Christmas tree would be a piece of driftwood, because we're on the beach. The house is right on the beach, surrounded by sand. And we lived in swimming costumes and lungis. You had no clothes. You didn't need any. You just swimming costumes is all you needed. So we'd find a piece of driftwood and put it into a flower pot
lovely.
with sand and a little bit of decoration. And from Mapsa Market, we would get a few of those paper hats.
Yeah.
I still have photographs.
And bonbons also?
No bonbons.
No bonbons.
No bonbons. just the paper hats. And we would have lunch at home. My grandparents were often there, my mother's parents. And the three of us kids and my father and mother. And that would be Christmas. And then I think post my mother's death, then it kind of changed. And then we started out doing Christmas back in Bombay again. And then I was at Atlas in our old home. And then when I shifted Dad to Juhu, which was like late 90s, early 2000s, I can't remember exactly. But Dabu was always there. And then we said, no, we have to include more of the family. So Chintu would start coming in. Then the kids, my cousins remembered Christmas when they were young. But the next generation didn't. So now I had kids. Rima's kids were older. So we still call them in. That's how the whole thing started at Prithvi.
The Goa that you described to me when you talk about how your father would sit on the veranda and there would be that bottle of his favorite tipple and how the villagers would pass by, pause, make themselves a drink, chat a bit and go on.
They would talk to him in Konkani, he didn't understand a word. And they would both nod and smile at each other. And nobody ever crossed a line.
Yeah.
That Goa doesn't exist anymore. That was pristine and it was beautiful, pure. The people were wonderful, but it's all gone.
You said something interesting to me. You said that people have gone to Goa and created their very own Bandra or their own Gurgaon or their own Delhi, and they haven't really integrated with the locals.
Not at all.
No wonder then there is a feeling of the other and they feel resentful. But you haven't really bothered getting to know the locals. You've just created your own little bubble in that Goa.
No, absolutely. So, I mean, that was not our story when we were there, and that was particularly in the 70s. And Karan and I made friends with two fishermen boys our age. And they were a kind of mirror image of our family because they had a younger sister who was Sanjana's age. And we would just spend the entire day together. We would fish together. We would barbecue together. We got into cycles. We would cycle together. We would cycle all over Goa. And then we got onto motorcycles. We would motorcycle all over Goa. We went to each other's parties and weddings and funerals. Santavado, which is the end of Baga. So Kalangut, you have all these vados. Santavado was where our house was and right on the beach. There were smaller boats, there was a larger boat. And the larger boat was shared by about 10 families. They used to put the net out into the sea and then pull it up onto the thing. And we were very often involved in that. We would fish in that. We would either be on the boat, throwing the net into the sea, and then on shore helping pull the net up.
Lovely.
And then when they had a bumper catch, and they couldn't pull the net onto the beach because it was so full of fish. And they would take smaller nets in their hand and scoop out fish and then throw it onto the beach while they'd be singing Hey Mala Dumsa. And we used to sing that. We used to love that.
Wow.
So this family, their tradition was that in one of the boat shacks on the beach, they would get together and they would have a celebratory lunch on New Year's Day, for which we were invited.
Right.
And we're the only non-fishermen on that boat.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating because they were not well off. And you took your own bowl, metal bowl, and you took your own pav. And they had made this incredible chana dal kind of a curry, which is exceedingly spicy but delicious. And I realized years later the reason why it was exceedingly spicy was that you couldn't eat too much.
Really?
So it was enough to go around everyone. And then they would always have their old local fenny in the fenny bottles. And pouring each other fenny. And Dad said, can I contribute, to the fenny? And then they said, no, you can bring beer.
How sweet.
Because beer was the thing then. And then the combination of beer and fenny, and then they would all start singing. And a couple of times Dad had to be kind of lifted and brought home because they'd make sure that he was plastered by the end of the afternoon.
How lovely.
Great memories of Goa. really was something special.
You spoke about we used to be on cycles and then we were on a motorbike.
Yeah.
And that takes me back to Missouri. I was all of 10 years old. And I went on a school trip. And we were taken to the marketplace and we went into the theater and guess what movie was playing? Ahista Ahista. And I'll never forget this shot of a young boy cycling into the sunset. And then from that emerged this young man on a bike, and it was you. And then there was this collective gasp in the theater because we were about 40, 50 girls from above I Petted Girls High School. And then a few months later, I was asleep at my residence in Bandra, Pali Hill. And I heard my mother calling out to me and saying, Pooja, get up, come out, come out, come out. And I came out like with sleep in my eyes, like my hair going in all different directions. And sitting there in my living room was you. And I was so mad with my mother. I said, how could you call me out to see him when I'm looking like this? And of course, she thought I was very silly. She was like, you're this child. Do you think he would even be remotely interested in how you're looking? So you were my first crush, Kunal. And then I worked with you on the Bush television ad.
So I came to your house twice.
Okay.
The first time was exactly like you said. And that point was just after Ahista Ahista, and I thought I wanted to be an actor. So I actually came there to meet your father to ask him for a job.
Right.
All right. Which obviously didn't happen. And then the second time I came, I actually came to ask him if I could cast you in a commercial.
Really?
Yeah. That's when we did the Bush commercials.
So you asked him whether you could cast me in the commercial?
I think he was still in school.
I remember going to China Creek with you. It was night and Mr. Ashok Mehta was lighting up this exotic forest, and you put me in this white nightgown with this lace overcoat, and then you put the rain machines on and you made me run through that forest at China Creek barefoot from I think about 8:39 in the evening to like 5 in the morning. And the last shot I had to fall on this mattress and probably 2 feet from my face was a cobra.
Correct.
And then we packed up, and of course we had no cars and all that, so we all said, can we hitch a ride with you? And you said, okay, get into my gypsy. And then I saw you at the end of this long night pull out a bottle of rum and struggle to open it. And I just said, pass it to me, please. And you gave me this look like, and let's see what she'll do. And I cracked it open with my mouth. And I'll never forget your reaction. You were like, what kind of a girl are you? You run through the forest in rain, fall in front of a cobra, and then crack open a bottle of rum at like 6 in the morning. So I think the cracking open the bottle is what I think finally
What
impressed.
did it?
Yeah. You were impressed finally with me. And then of course I did Oxenberg with you.
Yeah.
Where you called us all and said, there's no money, show up. You'll get a rose and lunch at Ling's.
And a bottle of champagne.
And a bottle of champagne. And then you took us to Ling's and the napkins came out with Kapoor embroidered on it. I was very impressed. And then, of course, you ordered off the menu.
I've never, ever looked at the menu at Ling's. So, I mean, Ling's is, again, a big, huge tradition. I used to go to Nanking before Ling's when we were children. And then Nanking eventually closed and Baba reopened with Ling's. And so Nanking used to have these napkins. Their regular customers had embroidered names, but they carried forward to Ling's. So they don't do it anymore.
But I'll never forget that. It was very posh.
So it's a good marketing thing. There are a lot of Kapoors who liked eating that.
Who love to eat still.
Exactly. Yeah.
So your obsession with food and your obsession with sound and your obsession with cars. Denzel asked me to ask you this. He said, ask him, what is his obsession with sound, man? Where does it come from?
I had a music system at home, all right, which I think I'd managed to bully my mom in getting me. I remember it was a small Techniques amp, all right, and it was split. So it was a preamp and a power amp, and I had little speakers. And my brother was notoriously heavy-handed. He would destroy anything he touched. So if I left town on a school trip and he was around, I would disconnect it and I would lock it up.
So he couldn't get his hands on it.
So he couldn't get his hands on my music system. I think there's a level beyond which you cannot hear the difference in terms of equipment. I mean, people go crazy. They spend lakhs and lakhs of rupees just on one cable. They don't listen to music. They don't hear it. They listen to the price of the equipment that they've put on. So I don't go that route. So anyway, there has been that kind of obsession with sound. I like good sound. It doesn't have to be the most expensive. It just has to be practical. The same thing with my cars. It has to be practical. There's no point you having a Ferrari, and a Lamborghini. They're great cars, but here in Bombay,
Where do you drive them?
Mumbai, in
Which
India,
is why you're test driving a car on the coastal road every second
No,
day.
I'm buying a new car, so the test is from Juhu. I drive to the Sea Link, and I do that as a passenger, and I sit and I say, go through Bandra, go through all the dug-up roads
Yeah.
and all the khaddas and everything, and then we will get onto the coastal road, and then I will drive.
And then it can fly.
And then we can try a little bit. I can feel the power of the car, and then I can feel the unevenness of the tunnel. Go to Marine Drive, turn around and come back. I think that's a fair enough kind of a test to do. And then it has to be, of course, power and handling, and then practicality as well. And I've enjoyed driving. I mean, I've driven a lot. I've done a lot of road trips. So sound. Now, what is the third one? Food.
Food.
I don't know. Food has always been an obsession.
When you mentioned the ratatouille and you said vegetarian, there was a certain degree of disdain in your voice.
Because I think vegetarians are racist.
So I'm racist.
Yeah, you are. Because you deny me being a non-veg.
Oh my God.
On my table, you will have vegetarian food, you will have non-veg food. But when I go to a vegetarian house, he will not give me non-veg. But in my house, I will treat him. I will give him his vegetarian.
You were appalled that I was in Kashmir and eating lotus stem.
Lotus stem is good, but the main thing is the gustawa, rishta, and then haq. That's vegetarian. I love haq. So, I mean, to me, heaven is rice with haq and gustawa or rishta or both. The tabak mas, I prefer my grandmother's recipe, which is more of a, I guess, a Peshawari recipe, as to the Kashmiri, because it's simpler. It doesn't have any haldi and masala. It's only salt and black pepper on the ribs. Their tabak mas, I prefer that. We do that at home. So that is great. So yeah, my food is the range again is ecstatic. It's not about again expense. I mean, we'll go into small eating houses and eat good food.
Yeah.
And then eat also fancy food, but it has to be good. I don't want to be conned.
Yeah.
I find a lot of restaurants tend to just con you. I don't agree with that.
But you spoke about the legendary kulchas that used to be made at every Kapoor party by this lady who
The
invented
naans of
the naans and
Taribai.
kulchas. Yeah. So,
Taribai.
yeah.
So she was amazing. She became a permanent fixture at almost every film industry party. But apparently her story was that she was a victim of the partition. And my grandfather's house was like a hostel. Anybody could come and stay there. And even on the only time my father had a room was the night of his wedding. My mother was horrified. She woke up in the morning. There were two strangers sitting in the bedroom having coffee, having a chat.
You're kidding me.
Because that was the way that house was. They used to sleep on the terrace in the monsoon. They would sleep in the corridors. Kriparam Singh came to attend a wedding in the 50s. He never left. He died after my grandparents died in the same house.
Wow.
So Taribai came to my grandfather and he said, what can you do? And she had lost her husband. She lost her family. She says, I can cook. So she made her own tandoor. And she cooked for the whole street. And I think she was probably one of the early pioneers of the portable tandoor, because she'd come to the house with her tandoor and make these most divine naans. They were just the size of your palm and they melted. Oh, God, my mouth is watering. My brother and I and Chimpu would go and stand there and wait for it to come out of the tandoor. And then makhan laga ke garam on my hands, bouncing and then...
But talking about Christmas, according to me, it kind of waves a magic wand over the world. Everything is softer and more beautiful somehow.
That's only because you live in Bandra. If you lived in Bilaspur, you would not be saying the same thing.
Well, one of the reasons I continue to live in Bandra is because I think Bandra is one place where the spirit of Christmas still exists. And Calcutta.
Yeah.
Calcutta just comes alive during Christmas.
Calcutta does.
And talking about Calcutta, interestingly, I was doing some research about my grandmother who's Armenian. And I discovered this hotel
Fairlawns.
where they said there was a permanent suite that your father had
Eventually,
there.
not initially. I think the chances are possible that both Karan and I were probably conceived in that house. In that
hotel.
I mean, the first time my father went to ask my mother out, he was in Fairlawns because that's where they met. They met in Calcutta. And my mother, with her parents and the Shakespeareana Company, they were staying at Fairlawns. And my dad went over to Fairlawns to ask her out for a date. And years went by. They keep saying that they got married. I'm sure I was conceived there. So 36 Charangi Lane, when that was being shot, which I think was 81, the entire unit, everybody stayed at Fairlawns. And every time Dad went to Cal, even on his own, he would only stay at Fairlawn.
Okay.
He would stay at the Oberoi, which is just next door.
Right.
He'd stay there. And the old waiters would still call him Shashi Baba. And they would shout at him if he's not at the table in time, and they would tell him off because they still treated him like a 17-year-old, which was nice. That was an amazing hotel.
But do you think the spirit of Christmas is diminishing? It's become more of a marketing event.
The one that really gets me about marketing is Halloween and Thanksgiving Day, which have no relationship with India.
True.
Christmas at least has a relationship with India because you had 150 years of colonial rule.
Yeah.
Calcutta, Mumbai, Pune, Bangalore, you had sizable Christian population, English influence. So the churches would have Christmas Mass. So interesting, see, like Goa. It's the Portuguese Catholicism that is the influence there. So they would do Christmas midnight mass. But the lunch feast was very different.
Right.
It's a holiday, and they would call it a feast. But it was their own cuisine. You didn't get turkey in Goa. So that's an anglicized colonial influence.
Well, my mother is Christian, so Christmas has always been a very big deal for us. And for me, Christmas is about the sound of bonbons. That's why I keep referring to bonbons all the time. The smell of vindaloo, kalkals, guava cheese. I mean, you can't get that guava cheese anymore. So when I do chance upon it, it just transports me back to childhood. People are just kinder on that day. And then, of course, the day after, it's all forgotten. But I went to see a play the other day at Dinanath. And I thought it's like a 4 o'clock show, so I have to be there on time. It didn't start on the dot. And apparently, Prithvi is the only theatre in Bombay where when you say 4 p.m. or 6 p.m., then the show starts at 6 p.m. And you have a rule where if you're late, you stay out because you don't disturb the performance, right? And I remember you telling me about a time when your daughter Shara was very young and you all came in from town and you all were late.
5 minutes late.
5 minutes late. And she asked you, but why can't we go in because it's our theatre? And you said something that remained with me. And that says so much about you as a human being. You said, because it's our theatre, we can't go in. And that's quite stunning.
I think what I said was, it's a rule, and the rules apply to everyone, no matter who you are. So there's no point you having a rule if you're going to make allowances.
That's true.
I mean, look around at our own society. The problem with 90% of our rules and laws don't
apply
because there's always too many exceptions.
Yeah.
Initially, when headphones came in with your mobile, and I had my headphone on Bluetooth, Jabba, I think they were called in those days, and stopped at the traffic light, and a cop car came, stopped by, and tapped me and said, "You have to remove it. It's not allowed." So I said, "Well, yeah, okay." And then I looked at him. His number plate was missing. Black dua coming out of his vehicle. I said, "Well, what about that?" "Oh, to theek hai." So again, the rules applied for me, but not for him. The cop car was allowed to be polluting the environment. That's what we are.
But how difficult is it to get funding for the theatre?
A
Nightmare.
What we really want is genuine patronage, not sponsorship.
Yeah.
The minute you get into sponsorship, particularly because then you involve marketing guys who have no love for what they're sponsoring.
Right.
And they're only interested in trying to sell a product and tick off the boxes in their own CV report card.
Yeah.
So we don't allow that. We don't allow any marketing of products in the premises. You need patronage. And then the only form of patronage that is common is when then they want to call the venue by their own name.
Oh, so it's so-and-so's Prithvi festival, which
name,
you will...
or even theatre.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Which you will never permit.
No.
Obviously.
No. We were talking about this recently with one of my cousins about did we not name a street after Prithviraj Kapoor, or did we not, name a road after him, or a park or something? And I said, well, no, because I remember this conversation with my father, and he said, what's the point? He said, they'll change the name of the road. They're going to name a road after his father, but prior to that had another name. So they'll change it again. Does anyone pay attention to it? And the statue, and they said, the statue, does anyone pay attention to the statues except for the pigeons who come and shit on it?
True.
So he said, then I'd rather do something that he believed in and what he aspired, what he wanted to do, which was his dream to have a theatre. And theatre at that time, professional Hindi theatre particularly, was at an all-time low in Mumbai. So that's where the idea came in, is to build a theatre and to maintain the theatre with the economics in favor of the performer. So the entire ticket collection goes to the performer, does not come to Prithvi Theatre. It goes directly from Book My Show, which is all digital now. It goes directly to them. This has been from day one. All right, day one it used to be a manual thing, with a booking chart in the 70s when it opened in 78. Now, of course, it's all digital with Book My Show. And they, in return, they make a small contribution towards the running costs of the theatre, which don't really cover the costs. And during the festival, we have a cap limit of 200 rupee a ticket, aiming at students. And we actually have Thespo performing now, for which the contribution that the theatre company should make to the theatre. During the festival, I was renting rooms for some of our out-of-station artists next door, King's Hotel. I'm paying the hotel more for one room and 2 beds with 1 air conditioner than what they're paying for the theatre with 50 lights and 36 tons of air conditioning and everything. And there's no regret. And don't argue with me that you're being foolish. The ones who are doing it appreciate it and they grow. That's why the theatre was built. So to get that kind of patronage from people who believe in it is difficult.
I've had the privilege of walking into your home, which is directly opposite Prithvi Theatre. And walking in there is like walking into a museum. And that legendary room, which I was fascinated by, the Chamcha Room.
Well, this was in our old home in town in Atlas. We had a big terrace, which was attached to my parents' bedroom. And on the other end of the flat, there was another small terrace. We always had breakfast together as a family. And when at one time Dad came home from work, 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock, whatever, 7:30, we all sat at the table together and we had breakfast. And this is half the English influence, where we had eggs, toast, porridge, cornflakes, coffee, chai, whatever. But you had a proper breakfast at 7:30, and 8:15 we would leave for school, and 8:30 Dad would leave for the studios. So very often producers and people would come to meet him. Our dining area, the dining table and the living room are kind of one. So where do you put these people? Now you put them in the living room, and you're here at the dining table. You have to invite them to the dining table.
Yeah.
So your family time is gone.
Yeah.
So Mom then said, to hell with this. And then she enclosed that small little terrace. And the way that our house was, that you enter the front door into a corridor. And then you could turn right and you can go in towards the living room through a door, or you go down the corridor towards this newly constructed room. And Mom said, "Saab ke chamche wahan dal do." So that stuck, and it became the Chamcha Room.
So now you have the Chamcha Room in Juhu.
So yeah,
the concept has moved forward.
So when we moved to Juhu, I moved everything from Atlas.
Yeah.
All right. There is, again, a lot of history there. Why this painting? Books, a huge library of books. So I moved everything there. So the Chamcha Room as well is a little smaller. But a little bit of squeeze here and there, and we managed to...
But it's fascinating. And I remember I walked in and there was the Dada Saheb Phalke award on one wall. And then I saw this album. and I saw Bobby written on it. And I remember asking you with great reverence, may I look at it? And you were like, yeah, sure. And I was turning the pages and I felt like I was touching history. I remember you looking at me and saying, I wish my family was as enamored as you are. But that's what strikes me about you. And I think that's amazing, Kunal, is how you are the memory keeper. You're somebody who archives, who painstakingly, lovingly restores, and just keeps everything and everyone together in so many ways. Does the rest of your family appreciate that?
Yes and no. But it's a different way of thinking, and it's just a different sense of priorities. I wear, shalwar kameez, should I wear jeans and pants? You wear jeans and pants, but we're both wearing clothes. It's just a different way of looking at things. I don't think one is superior to the other. I mean, I will turn around and mock at the other and say that you don't value what I'm doing, and they'll turn around and say, but what value are you doing? Where is the commercial value or whatever, So there are different levels of priorities.
I've seen awards, I've seen albums, I've seen photographs. It's gold.
Well, some of the awards, I hate to say this, but the only awards there of my parents, which I've kept, the Dada Saheb Phalke Award and the Padma Bhushan, and my mother's 2 awards that she got for 36 Charangi Lane. One was a BAFTA nomination.
Yes, I saw that.
And the other one was the Evening Standard Award. These were the 2 biggest awards in England. The 36 had a theatrical release in England. And she lost out the BAFTA. It went to Maggie Smith. So my mom wasn't bothered. She said, that's okay. It's like, being nominated and losing to Maggie Smith is fine. But those I found and kept, and they're more recent. But the earlier other ones that, my father had, he never bothered. I don't know where they are. All the Filmfare Awards, I don't know where they are.
Probably in a peti somewhere.
No, I think they're gone. The BAFTA is a different thing. I think BAFTA and Oscar, they are awards. We never treated them, my parents never treated us as an award. It's more of a recognition.
Yeah.
You can't win. We don't agree with that. You can't win an award. It's an art.
Yeah.
You like it, I don't.
Yeah.
And both are correct because it's an art form. It's not a race.
Right. It's not a race.
We can argue about who broke the ticker tape, who crossed the line first, and use cameras and equipment to decide who actually won, but not with an art form. You don't win an award, you get awarded.
True.
A difference. So my parents never put any value to it. When I told him about the Padma Bhushan Award, for example, I remember, because they also check with you that you'd accept it, because they don't want to be embarrassed. So before they make a public announcement, the ministry will call me up. They called me up and they said that we want to confer this award. Again, confer this award to, Shashiji. And I asked Dad, I said, Dad, they want to give it to you. And he laughed. You're rubbish. I said, yeah, they want to give it to you. He said, whatever. For years, Filmfare tried to give him a
Lifetime Achievement Award.
He said no. Then it was finally Yashji who convinced him, because he had a relationship with Yashji. And Yashji also was dying to get him to come and see his studio. He never went. So this was one way of getting him to the studio.
Okay.
Because the ceremony was at
Yash Raj Studios.
So Dad agreed to come in and receive that award. So I think that's there. I think that is that one Filmfare lady that is hanging around in the house.
But I was obsessed with Do Aur Do Paanch. It was my favorite Shashi Kapoor film. I just loved that movie. It just filled me with so much of joy. I think I've seen it about 80 plus times. But the kind of work that your father has done, commercial cinema being one thing, but constantly pushing, promoting cinema, do you think he's been acknowledged enough for that? Or is largely gone unsung in terms of his contribution as a producer, somebody who put his might behind stories?
Not just as a producer, he also kind of bankrolled half of Merchant Ivory's films.
Correct.
That friendship with Ismail Merchant and James Ivory went on and on and on forever. They started off there. Most of us in our industry in Mumbai don't even know who Merchant Ivory is. And they don't know how many Oscars they've got and how Jim Ivory got an Oscar at the age of 90 again. But we don't know who he is anyway, so that's one. And then, of course, Zoya wanted to see New Delhi Times, which I'd never seen. And I discovered that there was a restored print with the archives. So we'd organized that, and I spoke to Ramesh Sharma, who was the director. And he told me that he met Dad in Delhi in a coffee shop. And he said, this is a story I want to do. I mean, way ahead of his time, about a journalist trying to stick to his ideals.
Yeah.
And he heard him out a little bit, and then Dad just turned around to him and said, do you have 100 rupees in your pocket? He said, yes. I said, give me the 100 rupees. He took it, put it on the table. On the napkin, he wrote, received 100 rupees as fees for New Delhi Times, that he gave it to him. He said, I'm on.
Oh, my God.
That was it. So he would do things like that if he thought they were good. So Ashok Mehta, talent, cameramans, I mean, he pulled Ashok Mehta out, gave him 36 Charangi Lane to do when nobody would touch him. Prithvi Theatre, it's amazing how many people of all levels of success have walked that stage.
Yes.
Some of them have just walked it, some of it have started their careers there.
Yeah.
One of them that comes to my mind immediately, two of them was Anupam Kher.
Yes.
He started there. Dad took him into Utsav, and then your dad took him in, and then that became his stepping stone into stardom. Nina Gupta. Prahlad used to make her stand behind the counter because she's attractive. Girl, get people to come to the counter.
Prahlad was running the
cafe at that time.
Yeah, I remember the Irish coffees.
Yeah.
Yes, the legendary Irish coffees, which you all don't serve anymore.
Oh, we do. We just serve it, but it doesn't have brandy in it anymore. Because I refuse to have an alcohol license.
Yeah.
Not because of any moralistic point of view. I drink. I have no problem with anyone else drinking. But we're in a residential area, and it's an open cafe. And we're not the most well-behaved people when we consume alcohol.
That's true.
So just out of consideration to the neighbors.
Yeah, I know it cuts out a lot of drama, I agree.
Yeah. And I just discovered that, Irish coffee, there is a bit of brandy in it. And it's a pre-made mixture that they keep at the counter. There's no bottle. But I've overheard a couple of times where a customer would come and say, Irish coffee, coffee come Irish zyada.
Coffee come Irish, that's a good way to put it.
So I said, okay, now, hello.
I want to ask you about Ajooba and the experience of shooting in Russia. Because you've got some crazy stories from that time. And your hotel room, which you describe.
It was tiny. I mean, it was smaller than this booth. Hotel Ukraine, it was called. They call them the Seven Sisters. There were 7 buildings in Moscow built by Stalin. And when we were negotiating the contract, we stayed there. It was a really interesting experience working with them. It's strange. Stayed in Hotel Ukraine. Then we shot in Yalta. Yalta's on the Crimea.
Yeah.
All right. So that's where the war is going on, and which became part of Ukraine, which Russia has regained and taken back. But I think we enjoyed the Yalta shoot more than the Moscow shoot. And then we also shot in Frunze, which I think is on the border of Kyrgyzstan now, Kazakhstan. We shot the horse battles there, because of horses in the mountains. I negotiated the contract and the deal with Feroz Abbas Khan and me. We did it together. And then I came back and I was shooting commercials, and I would go up and down. When I went up, one of the shoots I carried with me, I think it was something like 650 kilos of dal.
650 kilos of dal?
Yeah. Because we used to take our own food there. That took everybody. So we had something like 200 people, which we'd taken from here. And even all the bit part character actors all flew club class. And they stayed for the entire duration. Even though they had 2 days' work, they were there for 3 weeks. All right? I mean, do you have any wonder why the film went over budget? So, but then, for the Indian unit, the food there is exceedingly bland and boring.
Yeah.
I didn't mind it. You had smoked fish and smoked hams and things so forth.
I know
which
borscht.
I like.
I love borscht, actually.
And borscht is nice. The soups are nice. So I didn't have such a big problem. But I understand the Indian palate, not used to that kind of food. So yeah, we took our own kitchen with us. We took everything with us. And then in Yalta, everybody had a girlfriend.
Yes, I think the Indian unit got a lot of female attention there.
A lot. They all had girlfriends. All had a lot of hearts broken when they left. A lot of drama happened.
Dalip Tahil told me about how he was selling his clothes to people there.
He would take all his old clothes in a suitcase, sit there on the beach, open a suitcase like a dukan, right? And sell his old tennis racket, his own clothes. And of course, vodka and caviar were dirt cheap.
Wow.
Because this was at the end of communism. This is Gorbachev era.
Yeah.
So communism was on its day out, but the full capitalism hadn't come in yet.
Yeah.
That's where I learned about caviar.
And you haven't been back since?
I haven't been back since, no. Moscow doesn't interest me so much. But what does interest me, which I'd love to go to, is the steppes. Is to go to Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, all the Istans.
All the Istans. And also the road trip through Mongolia. That is on a bucket list, right?
I'd love to do that.
And Japan. My fantasy is that I'm going to open a bar in Harajuku at some stage of my life where I'm going to sit outside dressed in black with my little cat, and then you promised that you would be the barman if I ever do that. So I'm going to hold you to that promise.
I'll be barman, cookman, washman, any man as long as I can eat.
I'll feed you in sea urchin.
Yeah, exactly.
And some steaks, perhaps.
Yeah, sea urchins. And, oh, God. I love Japanese food.
Yeah, so Japan is waiting for you, Mr. Kapoor.
Yeah, my nephews are dying to take me. They keep going every month.
You will fit right in. I can just imagine you.
In my shalwar kameez?
No, you will fit right. We'll put you in a kimono there. And you look like, one of the Yakuza.
Sumo wrestlers.
Yeah. But you told me this story about how your mother was very upset when she found a air pistol that you'd brought home. And you got in a lot of trouble for that.
She whipped me. She was waiting at the door.
Oh, and where did you procure that, may I know?
From a friend. My mother was a hardcore pacifist. She saw chicken being cut at the age of 15, became a vegetarian all her life. This happened in England, not here. And her belief was that she did not need to take life to live.
Right.
And her belief in those days was that India was a place where you could be very comfortable as a vegetarian.
Yeah.
Very difficult in Europe in those days.
At least those
in
days,
the 50s,
yeah.
60s, 50s particularly. And the second is just that the leather trade, your chappals, was usually leather made out of carcasses, dead animals. They weren't butchered for the leather. And that was the tradition that with the chamars, that's what would happen. That's how they disposed of dead cattle. So you weren't actually killing for the leather. Because I remember challenging her and saying, but you're wearing Kolhapuri chappals. Then what? And she explained the logic, whether in practice it actually continued that. Another debate. But yeah, and we grew up with pamphlets in the house of, what the cost of one Air Force fighter jet could run how many schools. One tank would create how many hospital beds.
Yeah.
All this kind of thing. And saying, so the thing was that guns to her has only one purpose, and that was destruction.
Correct.
A knife? No. A knife you can carve.
Yeah.
All right, you can cut your firewood to cook on. It's multi-purpose. But a gun has only one purpose. So we didn't grow up with guns, in the house, some toy guns even. So I borrowed somebody's air pistol and I hid it in my cupboard behind my clothes. And I came home from school, she was waiting at the door. And we used to ride horses, so we had horses standing there with a horsewhip. You bring a piece of destruction into my house. Whipped the daylights out of me.
Oh my God. But you started out wanting to be an actor and then became a hugely successful ad filmmaker to go into the kind of work that you've done. Will be here forever. And then were drawn back into acting. You did the film with where you shot in Romania.
Yeah. With Akshay.
And then you were in Panipat. And I remember somebody came over to give you a narration for a role and Karan was in town. And I'd come over and we were asking you, so how did it go? And you were like, yeah, the narration was good, but they wanted to shoot here. So I told them, shoot there instead. And I'll never forget Karan's reaction. He's like, Kunal, when they've come to hire an electrician, you don't tell them about the plumbing. They've come to you as an actor. Why are you telling them how to shoot and where to shoot? I found that hilarious. And also the time when you got a call from some new casting director's assistant, and they said, we want you in this part in a Vishal Bharadwaj film. And you said, does Vishal know you've called me? And because he's a friend of mine. And you figured out that they were calling the wrong Kunal Kapoor. Do you remember that story?
Yes, I do remember that. I mean, this happened a couple of times when they've casting agents. I think, they've got so many wannabe actors working as casting assistants for the casting companies. And they just have a list of people. And so they just do a machine gun fire into the dark. They have no idea who they're calling and who they're asking.
That's true.
I was asked, and they said, briefed me, and they said, it's a film with John Abraham.
Yeah.
And it's a film about the Naxalites. We want you to be in an item song. I said, oh, really? I said, right. Yeah. They said, yeah, you see, we want you to play a tribal chief. And I said, me? Play a tribal chief? I said, have you seen me? Do you know what I look like? I don't look anything like a tribal chief from Jharkhand when I do what you want me to do. So, I mean, I had missions in my head of, 1970s songs, films with going hoo-ha, hoo-ha, the junior artist dancers and the silly feather caps. Right? There was no deliberate move to go back to acting. Sing is Bling. I was actually doing the line production in Romania. And then, she just called me up and she said, don't laugh, but I'm going to ask you something. I said, okay, ask. So she said, I want you to act in the film, play Amy's father. I laughed. What are you going to pay me? So she quoted a figure. I said, don't be stupid. I won't do it for anything, at least double. She said, okay, done.
So you said, half more times though.
So now I had to do it. And but I called it humiliation money.
Humiliation money, that's a good term.
So,
I like that.
I'm just so out of it. When they called me up for Panipat, I said, okay, I'll do it. And then later on, I met them and I kept telling them, what you did was you paid for my back surgery. I was on painkillers right through. She said, really? He said, yes. I said, yeah. I had taken a nerve block in my spine. And I was on painkillers and throughout the shoot. But that's what it did. Paid for my... came back and I went and I did my back.
Wow.
So now I've got titanium plates and screws in my spine.
But your children are such special human beings, and
They take after their father.
And I watch y'all. It seems like they're the parents, Kunal. They parent you more than you parent them.
I don't know what children do that.
Well, maybe.
I think there comes a point where suddenly it starts
the roles
to
are
flip.
reversed.
Yeah.
No, but Zahan and the choices that he's made. He's made some unusual choices with regards to his debut film. The work that he continues to do after.
Well, I think he knows. I mean, they've been brought up with the factor that nobody's going to launch them. They're going to have to find their own route. Very clear. First of all, I didn't think he was going to be an actor.
Oh, you didn't?
No. Though I saw him in a play in school, and I thought it was interesting because most actors don't listen. They're only waiting for their cue to speak. They're not listening. And I saw this 9-year-old boy, and I could see him listening, and I thought that's interesting because that maturity in a 9-year-old, and it's a school production, there's nobody's really taught him. But no, I thought he worked with me and then with a couple of my ex-assistants as an AD. He operated camera for me on a Mahindra shoot in Hungary.
Wow.
So I thought he would be a director and he would be a writer because I thought he could write and he could direct. Somewhere down the line, suddenly he decided to go and watch Nasir Shah rehearse for Arms of the Man. And he went and he sat and he watched the rehearsals and then he came back and said, yeah, I want to act. I want to be an actor. So then he took himself and he did an immense amount of riyaz.
Yeah.
huge amount of training. Chose people to hang with, chose people to speak, to listen to. His diction, his Hindi diction, he worked really hard on it. My father gave each of his grandchildren a sizable kind of a present when he sold the flat. And so with that money, he took himself off to England, went to drama school, and joined the National Youth Theatre for a year, and did a whole lot of other small courses at Pinewood Studios and Ye Filana, Wo Filana. Then here, Pondicherry, at Adi Shakti.
Right.
Language, like I said, listening to people, working, reading. I mean, he's read poets like Ghalib and Faiz and the Upanishads and the Vedas in Devanagari. He's obsessive.
Well, the obsessive gene runs through. I mean, you're obsessive about things that you like.
Yeah, we do have to basically get tunnel vision. We don't know when to stop, like our eating.
And Shaira is a production designer, and she's very good.
The same thing with her. She actually got herself on her own admission into Maastricht University in Holland to study business management or something which was completely unrelated. And she was young, and I said, no, take a gap year, get some experience, travel if you want. Or your Mamu was starting a film. She was always very good at putting things together. Not a fashion designer making clothes, but putting things together, creating a room and creating things. So I said, go work on a set. And that did it for her. And then
she just
said,
found her feet there. She just
this is what I wanted. So she cancelled Maastricht, and now being very good at it, and then she blames me for making her Mazdoor class.
So you guys are off to London to spend time with the other side of the family, and you're going to be there through Christmas and New Year's.
And New Year, yeah.
Eating lots of turkey.
And goose.
And goose.
And goose.
So the meals are all planned.
So goose is a much better meat than turkey. It's a much better meat. So yeah, we'll have roast goose, roast potatoes. Oh God, looking forward to it.
Wonderful. Well, I'm going to have some vegetarian food on Christmas.
Delicious.
Thank you so much for taking time out,
Thank
because I
you,
know you're
Pooja.
extremely elusive, and the fact that you've agreed to do this means a lot. But before I go, what I must talk to you about is you proudly say that you haven't even gone past the 10th standard.
No.
But your knowledge and your understanding of history, you're a historian. You can
I'm not
sit
a
down.
historian.
No, but you can sit down and talk about.
Because again, I think the environment starts off in the environment that I grew in. My mother was interested in, and particularly the late Mughal and early colonial period. But it was the lifestyle and people. I still don't know dates other than 1857. I don't know what date Akbar came in or what date Babur came in or whatever. When did Alexander come in? It was about people and their biographies. So the information was related to, somebody's travel books, their biography, their letters, that kind of information, which we had a lot of in the house. And my mother was interested in that. And then Merchant Ivory, they were. Then Sham Benegal, also into that aspect of history. It's a spill on, kind of an environment that you grew up in and you learn that. So never learned, oh God, the Mughals did this or the Marathas did that and then they burnt this down and they burnt that. It's more interested in how did they live?
Yeah.
What did they do? What was their life like? This English lady who married a civil servant in the East India Company and then did a solo version up the Ganges. All right, and then the differences of, because she's a woman, getting access into various zanenas. And the difference between the Maratha zanena and the Marathas are zanenas and the Mughal zanena. All right, and the women and what they wore. Now they rode horses and, and their own internal politics. And so a lot of this interested me. So whenever we talk history, my first question, what was the cultural atmosphere around then?
Right.
What was happening then at that time? It's not just that, the Allies won World War II. What was actually happening in London? How did they send all their children to foster homes away from their parents? in mass train loads to get them away from the bombing. What happened in Germany? How did they level Germany? And what was the life like for the people who lived there? So these are the stories that interested me. And from that, you get an idea of history.
Yeah, but that's what they say. It's not how you live, it's what you remember and how you remember. So I think you are the memory keeper. And Merry Christmas again. And I look forward to you being back and hearing all about your travels, all about the food excursions, and sharing some more meals with you.
Thank you, Pooja.
Thank you. The Pooja Bhatt Show is produced by Mammoth Media Asia and Epilogue Entertainment and distributed by iHeart Podcasts. The executive producer is Jonathan Strickland.